Hi, Merch Money. We are live today with Jim and with Christina. So welcome, guys, and hi, everyone.
Hi.
So hopefully you guys saw the last show with Jim. If you haven't, definitely check it out. He gave so many great tips, walked through so much stuff. And we had briefly mentioned that he was working on a tool at that time, but it hadn't quite come out yet. So we wanted to have him back on just to kind of show it, because it really is great. And then Jim always thinks that everything is going to go by really fast. So he's like, okay, well, that'll be 5 minutes. And then the rest of the show, he'll show other things. But we'll see. I know it. The hour goes by so fast. So I told him start with the vintage app, and then we'll see how much time we have for everything else he wants to show.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and he told me that he's trying to make it a web-based one too. So I was like, oh my gosh, that'd be amazing, because he knows that I am terrible and don't use Photoshop. So, but I did find people that do use Photoshop. So he got a nice, good group of beta testers for this. So,
yes.
Yeah. So thank you for having, appreciate it, and for I contacted Helen. I said, I'm working on this thing. Is there any people that that would be interested in beta testing a Photoshop tool that I'm working on? And you were nice enough to put together like 10 or 12 people or whatever that came along, and they were great, and you were just really helpful with it. And just generally speaking, before I start talking about the tool, I just want to say thank you to both of you for all the content that you put up on in Merch Money. It's really great, and not just the kind of like actionable content, but just like the inspirational quotes and the book recommendations and all that. I think it's really helpful, and especially now when we're all sort of working from home and feeling a little bit isolated, it's really good to get that type of inspiration from people that you're trying to connect with. So I really appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone else does as well.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. So this thing that I've been working on. So if you're probably seeing this for the first time with me, but I'm not only a merch designer, a print-on-demand designer, but I'm also like a graphic designer, and I also do animation and some video editing and some other stuff. But with doing all the shirts and stuff that I did for years, I've been using. I find that like doing a vintage look on the shirts tends to sell a lot more often. Like I'll always do a design with both like a regular look, and then I'll add like a vintage look to it. And so I really wanted to, that stuff takes a while to do. So I tried to figure out a way to sort of automate it and make it faster. So the first thing I did is, once I sort of like worked on developing these different textures and stuff like that to use, I built some Photoshop actions, which are just like macros. They're repeatable tasks that will do the same thing over and over every time. And that saved me a lot of time. I had one for resizing stuff to from regular 4,500 by 5,400 to the hoodie size, and then the pop socket size. And then
one second, Jim. Let me interrupt you for just a second.
Sure.
We forgot to say when we first went live that merch is back. So I feel like this is so perfect timing that you got this tool to work right when merch came back. Somebody just commented and they said, is Merch by Amazon live again? Yes. I mean, we can't really upload right now. At least I don't think so, right? You can't upload. I wasn't able to. I
tried today and I wasn't able to, but at least we're getting sales again, which is very nice.
Yes. So soon we'll be able to upload. So this will come in perfect timing for that. But that made me so happy. I don't know when everybody else thought that it would come back, but I was like prepared for it to be like June or July or August or something. And so I was so happy when it's like I started getting sales, and I'm like, yes.
Yeah, I was so thrilled to just generally get like 1 or 2 sales in Germany or the UK like the last couple of weeks. I was like, oh, a sale, but then it just was taking so long. So, but yeah, it's exciting to be back. And I did try to I tried to like upload a couple things today, and I can't upload anything yet. So I'm just had to
So this tool will work. It's for Photoshop, so it'll work for pretty much any platform. But you have it specifically for the sizing dimensions of Merch by Amazon.
Right. So right now, the version that I did, I basically built it specifically as a tool for me because I use these all the time, and then I just needed to expand it out to make it a little bit more usable for other people that's just not on my computer system specifically. So the first thing I did is I went out and I built these. I've seen a lot of like sort of distressed looking textures that just it looks like they took a picture of concrete and made it look like a texture. You know what I mean? And then put that on the shirt, so it doesn't really look like a t-shirt texture. It just looks like a dirt texture. And so the first thing I did is I went out and I went to like Goodwill and I bought a bunch of old t-shirts that were already fading, that like those old sort of silkscreen t-shirts that had already kind of had their life as a t-shirt and they were starting to fade and they were getting that really cool look. So I took a couple of them that I liked and I took parts of them and I scanned them. And then I, did some stuff with in Photoshop with levels and curves and threshold and things to basically just isolate the texture. So these are real t-shirt textures. These are real distressed t-shirts that have been turned into textures to use on t-shirts. So they look really good. They look like a real faded t-shirt, which is what I really like. If it's okay, I'll try to share my screen and then we can take a look at actually how it works. Does
Absolutely.
Okay,
and
cool.
Christine, I gotta show Christina's comment real quick. She said, "Hi, Merch Dad." So my dad's watching. Thank you, and my mom probably too, both of them. So thank you guys. They're the most supportive parents ever.
That's awesome.
And you would think I was their only child, but nope, they have 8 of them, and they're somehow supportive of all of them.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
Merch Mom and Dad of the year.
Yep. Oh, yep. And Mom's watching. Okay. Aw. Jim, I had no idea that you actually that the vintage effects were some that you had taken from t-shirts.
Well,
that's so cool.
Yeah, because like there's all kinds of, and if we have time, we can talk about places where you can like find free textures and stuff online. But honestly, for me, I just always have, especially now with cell phones, everyone's got a cell phone in their pocket all the time. And I'm constantly taking photographs of interesting textures and stuff like that. These were actually not done with a cell phone. They were done on a scanner for a higher resolution. And I wanted to get them, really, really clean looking. So that's how I did it. And, they were kind of cool shirts anyway. So I was like, okay, I can use these for something. But they just had that great, some of them were like, one was like I had like an AC/DC t-shirt when I was a kid, and it had that awesome fade on it, and I found one that was one of those shirts, and so I picked that up, and then I picked up a bunch of other ones because it's the silk screen, and the silk screen fades in a different way. It kind of cracks, and it gets these really cool cracks in it. It's not just like a dirt texture. So that's what these are. These are really like real t-shirt faded textures that I built. So
so cool.
Yeah, it's cool. So let me see if I can share my screen so I can show you guys how it works. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Let's see here. Share screen. Okay.
Oh, hey, Austin. How are you? It was nice for him to watch.
Okay.
All right.
Let me know if you guys can see me. Okay.
Yes, I can see it.
Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to move this one. Sorry, I know you're getting like a weird echo effect there. So I'm just going to put that over there. Okay. So this is a Photoshop tool, and the way I work as a designer is I design most things in Illustrator, and then I'll basically output them from Illustrator to Photoshop. So just as an example, these are just a couple of the Illustrator files that I'm gonna process, and I have a background on there, so you can see, it's just these 2 files here. And so what I do here is this template is built at this is 4,500 by 5,400 template that I use. And then I'll go ahead and when I'm ready to output the files, I'll go Illustrator, export to screens, and then I'll choose the files I'm gonna output, and then I output that. And so that's how I actually output the files. And so the files I'm gonna process here, I don't need to save that right now. I'm working live here, so sometimes that happens. So then in Photoshop, let me just I'm sorry. Can you guys see my screen okay?
Yes, thank you, Christina. You made it bigger, so.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, so I've got, where is I'm sorry. So those files have been output to a folder called IV process. So the way that the plugin works is, here's Photoshop, right? So once it's installed, it's an extension. So you go under Windows, Extensions, Instant Vintage, and it just kind of pops up. It's a little extension here, and I always just kind of dock it right here in my. Oops, hang on. I dock it right here in my dock, so it's kind of always there. And I open it up, and then when you click on the extension, oh, it popped up over on the other screen. This is the actual interface here, right? So this, what it has here is it has you specify the source folder and then the output folder. So the where the files are coming from and where the files are going to, and that can be the same folder. It just depends on how you like to work. And you guys, let me know if I'm going too fast or too slow.
I think you're going okay, but one question real quick while we're still at the beginning.
Sure.
Patty is asking how much do you need to know Photoshop? Like how well do you need to know Photoshop?
I mean, you don't really need to know. I mean, you could conceivably have Photoshop and never use anything but this plugin in it if you want to. You don't have to use Photoshop at all. I'm not doing anything in Photoshop other than just processing the files. That's all I'm doing. So, but what the plugin does do is it outputs layered versions of the Photoshop files as well as the PNG files and the PDF files in the case of the KDP. So it basically gives you layered files that you can go ahead and edit as well. So it kind of gives you both, and I'll show you that. So anyway, you've got like the source folder, which is the input folder, and then the output folder, which is where the files go when they've been processed. And then I'm just going to go ahead and, before I specify these, I'm just going to go ahead and show you. So if I select the input folder here, I'm going to go to, let's see, where is it on my desktop? There's a lot of stuff here. Desktop, and then this is the IV input folder. And where are my files? Oh, so that's the folder with the files in there. PCs and Mac work differently. And then I'm used to seeing the previews there. And then the output folder is right here. And that's the same thing. It's just on my desktop. I just specify this is the folder I want the files to go into. And then I'm going to choose, so you've got t-shirts and hoodies and pop sockets and KDP. And what you can do is you've got a choice of 3 different levels of fade. There are 3 different files. One is just a little bit of fade. One is a lot of fade. It's kind of like the 3 bears, too little, too much, just right.
Yeah.
So for t-shirts, you can choose like different fades for each. Like you can have a medium fade on a hoodie, and a heavy fade on a t-shirt, and a very little fade on the pop socket because it's small, and the same thing with the KDP. So this is what the tool looks like once you open it up. And so I'm going to choose just t-shirt here, and I'm going to say a medium distress on the t-shirt, and then the hoodie here, and I'm going to choose a heavy distress on the hoodie, and then pop sockets. And then with pop sockets, because pop sockets, you kind of need to specify a background color on those. You know how that works with pop sockets, like the background. So if you're processing like 50 pop sockets, right? Well, maybe you don't want all the backgrounds to be the same color for your pop socket. So you can choose to not have it have a background. And then you can go and add the background later. And actually in the vintage instant vintage set, I included a bunch of actions to just drag and drop backgrounds on top of pop sockets, because that's how I do it. So just kind of a little extra thing. And there's some videos online that'll show you how that works and stuff, but it basically comes with it. It's free. I just threw it in because it's just a tool that I use. So
that's great.
Or you can, if you want them all to be the same color, maybe you want them all to be black or whatever, you can specify the background color by just clicking on it and then going and specifying a color and saying, okay. And now all the pop sockets will be rendered with a background. So a black background, and then, or whatever color background you want. And then so then it'll save that out with that. So with the KDP thing, it's the same thing. It'll take whatever file that you have, whatever Amazon, whatever merch file you have, and you turn it on, and you can either have it distressed or not. Because I know that some people, one of the beta testers were like, well, does it have to be distressed? Can we do it without the distress? And I said, yeah, let me work on that. So we made it so that you can either have the distressing on or off for the KDP, and then you can choose any of the KDP sizes that are made. Like most people, I first started doing this with just like the 3 most popular sizes, but then we figured out a way to just do them all. So these are all the available sizes for KDP. And then you can choose your paper color, and then you can choose the page count, and it'll go up to 400 pages, and it'll basically build the file out according to the page count, because they ask for the page count when you build them, right?
Right.
So like I just say like 100 pages. And then the thing with the background, so because KDP has, they want you to upload a PDF file, I made it so that if you don't specify a background, it'll save out as a PNG file. So just like all these other files, it's just PNG with a transparent background. But if you want it to be basically the flattened final art that you're going to upload, you click background and it'll automatically save it as a PDF file instead. And then you can specify your background color, just like you can for the pop sockets, right? So that's, I'm just going to like specify this color here. It can be any color. So now I'm just going to hit process, and what it's going to do is it's going to open, and it's going to, and it 2 minutes to talk as it's going on, but I'll opened up, and I'm not doing anything. It's just running, right? You can kind of see that it's just doing its work, and it'll take a few minutes depending on the size of the files and all that. So one of the kind of cool things that it does is, for other people that work maybe in Illustrator, they might run into this. I ran into this, so I wanted to fix it. Is sometimes when you're working in Illustrator and you have a file size which is 4,500 by 5,400, and you export it, sometimes you get a weird, it's a little bug in Illustrator where sometimes it'll output it like a couple pixels off. It'll be 4502 by 5401 or something weird like that, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
That's a pain, because then when you go to upload it, you get this error saying it can't upload because it's not a valid file. So this fixes that. This just addresses it, where it fixes it and makes sure that all the files are exactly the right size. This bulldog image that you see here that I've got, that I built, the original file size is it's not at all a merge size. It's like 7,000 pixels by 6,000 pixels. I made it specifically to show that it corrects for all these different sizes, and it doesn't squeeze anything or distort anything. It just makes it the size that it needs to make. And you can see it. These are all just kind of running, and it's just about done. And when it's done, I'll just open up the files so we can take a look at them. But you can kind of see the process. It takes a few minutes, but what I do is if I'm doing a bunch of merch stuff, I'll kind of put them all in a folder and then set it for the end of the day, end of the day or lunchtime or whatever it is, and I'll just click go and go get a cup of coffee or something like that, and come back and they're done, and then I can just upload them. And so it's just really, really nice. You can see it's like there's some progress, especially with this file, because it started as a really big file. So it's saving for the web. So I see this pop socket. Now it's doing the this guitar one here.
Wow.
And the other thing I did is that I know a lot of people like to have their graphics like the full size, of the merch window, because they want the mock-up to be really big on Amazon, because it sells better, right? The bigger the graphic is, the better it sells. So these all size it to the maximum vertical or horizontal size depending on your graphic. So if your graphic is tall, it's going to go to the tallest vertical size. See, now it's done.
Nice.
If it's wide, it's going to go to the tallest or the widest size. So you guys kind of follow me. There's kind of a lot of stuff here, but you're following me so far?
Yeah.
Yeah. I do have one question. Oh, go ahead.
Jacob is saying exciting. I like it. Thanks for watching, Jacob.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So
Christina had a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, quick question. So you can turn the distressing off for the KDP
Right.
covers. Can you turn it on and off for the others?
Not with
Yeah.
this version. Probably what I'll do is if enough people really want that, um, I'll go back and have that done in maybe the next version. It just seemed like the original premise was to do the just to do the vintage thing, and then when we started to address the KDP thing, the first comment was, well, I just want them to convert to KDP, but I don't necessarily want it to be distressed. So we just kind of did it for the KDP thing for now, and we might go back and do it for the other ones. And like I said, if people want it and they request it, and it's popular enough, I'll just go back and do it, and it'll just be a free upgrade. Just replace them.
That's awesome. Yeah, because I could see a few uses. I love the vintage part of it, but I could also see this tool being used for a lot of people who have, thousands of shirt designs that they want to convert to the other formats. And right now, this is the only tool I know of that could do that.
Cool.
Just automate that process for all of those different sizes. So that's really awesome. Everything else on the market's really manual in regard to that. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'll just show you now the finished files, right? So the process files, I have this folder. You guys can still see my desktop. I know it's a big desktop, so the stuff is small on it. But so this is my output folder, and in here there's 3 folders, right? So we've got the PNG folder, and inside the PNG folder, we've got the files for the hoodies, the pop sockets, and the t-shirts. So if I open up the t-shirt folder and then I open up these files, okay, so these are my t-shirt files, right? And these are basically ready to upload, or if you want to, change it by moving it around or something, you can do that. But it has so I'm just going to drop a background on here just so you can see the actual distressing on it. So you can see how like that really nice fabric-y texture,
And it comes through with the background color, not
you can really see it. I mean, it really looks like, that's a real t-shirt there. So then this was the medium distress on this particular design. So then the guitar one, the same thing. You can see all that crackling and stuff on the bottom of the shirt, which is cool. And so this is the t-shirt ones, and I'll go back to that folder, and then in the PNG, and then for the pop socket ones, I'll just open those up. And these are small, right? They're 485 by 485. No, 485 by 485, and they're centered inside the circle. I could drop the template on if I had it in front of me, but and it just has a little bit of texture in it. You see that, just a little bit, because we chose the light texture on that one, and it gave it the black background. It flattened it out, right? So the same thing with the guitar thing. It's sitting inside that circle that it needs to be in, and it's got a black background. Same thing with the vintage. You can kind of see the texturing on this one because it's, that's a really light little texture there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
So
fair.
So let me just go back to the Explorer again. So that's the pop sockets, and then the hoodies, and we can just look here. So the hoodies, these I did the heavier texture on the hoodie just to look at it, and you can see that's like more faded, right?
Yeah.
So that really has a really nice kind of fade. This was my my son's high school mascot that he really wanted. He didn't like their shirts, so I was like, well, I'll design a shirt for you.
That's cool.
and he got a lot of compliments. But you can see like all that nice cracking and fading. And stuff. It really looks like a shirt, So that's that's how that works, right? And so that's the hoodies. Now, these are the PNG files. Now, for the KDP, if I open up this KDP, there's not going to be anything in this one because we specified a background, it automatically created PDF files for it, right?
Okay.
So that's ready to upload. It's ready to go. So back in like my output folder here, I got the PDF, and these are PDF files now. And I'm just going to just open up Acrobat, but
Perfect.
That's crazy green color, but that's just what I specified. but
Right.
it puts it on the right side. It's exactly the right dimensions for the for the thing. And if you look at the overview videos and stuff like that, I show in a lot of detail the exact dimensions and all that, but I won't go into that right now.
Yeah.
But so it creates that for the KDPs. I just want to close that. I'm not sure what's going on with Acrobat there. So we've got, I've got the Bulldog one. Again, I got to move this over here. Oops, hang on, sorry. So, and you can see there's no distress on that, right? It's just it's just a clean design, positioned and centered on the right-hand side, which is where it needs to be for the KDP thing. So this is ready to upload. If I wanted to upload this to a 6x9 100-page format book, it's ready to go because it's a PDF file. So you don't have to do anything else with it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then finally, just to kind of show you the last thing with the output is it also outputs everything as layered Photoshop files so that if you want to edit them in Photoshop, it's just going to open it up. It basically gives you the texture that you can, go ahead and modify or something if you want. But you can go, because this is called a layer mask in Photoshop, and that's how this effect is created. So you can go in and turn it off or edit it or something like that. So I could disable the layer mask and it's back to normal. So you could edit it over again.
That's great.
Pretty cool. I'm pretty proud of how it works and everything. I'm really happy with it, But this is it's all completely editable. And what's nice about it is also the original files, the original input files are unchanged. They're exactly, I didn't touch them at all. So that's the original file.
Amazing.
Now, quick question on that.
Yeah.
What types of input files will it accept? As far as will it just accept?
It'll basically take anything with a transparent background. So it'll take Photoshop files. It'll take PNG files. It's not going to take Illustrator files. It has to be a pixel-based file. But most people just output as either Photoshop or PNG files. So that's how I built it to work, because that's just, like I said, I built this as just like an extension of my workflow. So it's basically working according to my workflow. It may not be everyone's workflow, and that's fine. It's just, it seemed like a useful way to do it. So I wanted to share it and get it out there to make it easier for people.
Well, thank you for making it. And thank you for showing us.
Do you have any questions about it or anything?
Yeah, guys, any questions? I think you just answered Lynn's question about, do the original files need to be vector files?
No. You know what? I'm gonna stop sharing my screen because you're getting this crazy thing. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, does not have to start. I mean, the files that were processed were pixel-based files. So you could do everything. You could create everything in Photoshop, or you could create it in any other program that you create your files in, and then just run it. Pardon me. Then just run the plugin inside Photoshop. And Photoshop, like, I didn't do anything else in Photoshop. It's just, in this case, it's just a catalyst to run the tool. Everything else is basically doesn't, I didn't open up or do anything in Photoshop to make it work. It's just the tool. It's just kind of where the tool is built. It's the platform. Yeah. So that's it. That's
perfect. Thank you so much. I don't know if I showed Patty's comment yet, but she said, "I am blown away. You seem to have thought of everything."
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, if I haven't, let me know, and I'll see what I need to do to. It's like looking at maybe going back and making it so that it's where we take the distress off. That's just another option. I'm sure I can build it in and just make it a free upgrade.
Yeah.
It's just a few additional steps. One of the things we're trying to do is like not make it too many buttons. You know what I mean?
Right. You want to make it simple.
Yeah, you want to try to make it simple. And I originally hadn't really planned on even doing KDP until I basically had already done the thing. And I was like, oh, maybe I should do KDP. And then we built it, and then they're like, let's do all the sizes. And I was like, all right, we'll do all the sizes. And they're like, let's turn the textures off. I was like, okay. But it's really useful just for that. I mean, just to, if you don't want to do anything, and the thing is like you can just only pick the ones you want to do. So if you only want to convert all your hoodies, you can do that. If you only want to take, if you've got all your 4,500 by 5,400 files and you only want to do pop sockets, you can just choose pop sockets and just do all that, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything else. And it'll be faster. The reason why it was a little slower than what I'd like it to be is just because it had to load each one. We did all 3 textures, and so it had to load all 3 of them. Where if we were just doing a single texture, like if we were just doing the medium distress, then it would be really fast. And if you were just doing the KDP where you weren't doing the texture at all, it's super, super fast.
Wow.
Amazing. Guys, any questions? I think it was you did a great job explaining it. So I think everything.
When I do these tutorials, I tend to talk really fast, so I try to catch that.
Well, I think it was great.
Okay, cool.
And I know you have some tutorials already, so we could always maybe link those in the description.
Yeah,
if people want to see another one.
Yeah, they're basically just, what the product does and how to use it and, and where you can get it and all that. But you guys have a link for it and also a little discount that we
oh, yeah, that's right. The coupon code. So it's $10 off, guys. How much is the tool? So tell them about that too.
So it's so funny too, because I had no idea what to charge for this thing. And people were like, you should charge, and I know this sounds like an infomercial. I don't mean it to. People are like, you should charge $79 or $99. And I was like, I wouldn't pay that for a specific tool personally. So we kind of settled it at $39, so $39.99, and then we're going to do like $10 off for 48 hours or something like that for people who want it, with a coupon code for you guys. So it'll be $29. But I mean, just the time it saves me is just,
yeah.
It's the beta. A lot of that was. I asked the beta testers, what do you think this is worth?
I think it's so funny because I had been thinking about Photoshop actions, even though I don't really use Photoshop that much. Once I realized how much Photoshop actions could do, I've been searching for them. And then you came out of nowhere and was like, Helen, can you test out this Photoshop action? And I'm like, how did he know I was looking for Photoshop actions?
Yeah.
So I'm happy that now I know somebody who knows how to make them, because I feel like there's going to be a need for a lot of other ones too, not just that.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with the Photoshop actions, I started with, like 2 or 3 years ago, whenever I started doing this, I started with just kind of making a like what's called a droplet, which is just it's basically an action that's a little application that you just leave on your desktop just to like drop all my files in once they were done, because I was running into that issue where the size was just a little off. It was 4501 by 5400. And when you're uploading merch and you're trying to work fast and like upload all these things, and you've got 30 tabs open like I do, and you're trying to just upload and multitask and all that, and then you get a thing and it's like, this file is not valid. You're just like, what file is that? So this was just my first step to do that. And then once I did that, then I was like, okay, well, let me just, instead of having to do a different document for the hoodies, I just built to do the thing for the hoodies, just size it to a hoodie size. And then I was like, okay, well, I'll just build it to size it to a pop socket size. And then I started doing all the things where with the distress textures, because they're, stuff just sells like, it seems like everyone wants it to look like a vintage t-shirt. So I basically always post 2 versions of whatever I do. I post a clean version and a distress version, and I always sell way more distress versions of this exact same design.
Yep. In most niches, it's true. Yeah. There's only a few of my niches that it doesn't seem to sell as well, but it's because of the target customer, it's just not what they would wear. But almost every single one sells better. Yeah.
I mean, I think so. And then for the same thing with the pop sockets is, I was like, well, how do I get this work? Because I want to be able to add the color, but I don't want to have to, that's just like choosing a color and then dropping it in and then flattening it, saving it out. That's 3 steps that don't need to be 3 steps. So then I just built these actions that will just automatically make it black or automatically make it blue or automatically red. I just did the primary colors, red, green, blue, yellow, orange, purple, gray, and white. So you just take your files, whichever ones you want, you just drop it onto the droplet that you want the color to be, and it just opens it, adds the color, flattens it, saves it, and closes it. It's just like that. So it just saves time.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I just wasn't doing pop sockets, because I'm like, this is too much work to do for maybe it'll sell and maybe it won't. So I just wasn't doing them for a while. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, let me do it because, if it's only taking me, 30 seconds to process all these things and upload them, then it's worth my time to do it. Pardon me.
Yeah, those kind of things. For a while, I was like, oh, should I upload to Germany and UK? Like I wasn't selling as much there, but I was really glad I did during this whole time that the US was closed. I was like, oh, thank God I have them up on Germany and UK.
Yeah.
And it's so funny too, like my, I don't know if you guys are on because I'm on Redbubble and TeePublic and some other, and those have been selling. The sales on that have gone up a lot since merch.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah, I do have Fine Art America. I totally forgot about that platform.
Yeah.
all the platforms I rarely see sales from are all getting sales.
Yeah, they're all getting sales. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I can just see so many uses. For those of you that have been in merch a while, you probably remember the tool Merchinator. It was one that I had. It was from the Jersey guys when they were doing merch.
Right.
And this reminds me very much of that, where you can kind of like batch out and resize and add your vintage. And I know that people were pretty devastated when that tool just something happened with it during an update and it just like went away overnight. It doesn't work for anybody anymore. So if you were a Merchinator subscriber, this might work for you.
Yeah, what I'll probably do is, like I said, I'm talking to. First of all, I wanted to get a sense of, do people think this is cool, and is it worth working on more? Like I built it for myself basically, and then I had some help to kind of like port it out for other people. But if it's worth it, I'm going to look at like porting it to would be more like a subscription based application, just like what was it called, Merchinator?
Merchinator, yep.
What would be something like that where it would do the same thing. You'd batch process it, but it would be based in a browser, and so it would be independent of Photoshop. But I'll try to work something out with that and try to get that to happen. I also thought about doing a version that is just a KDP version that just does conversions. That would, because that seems like that would be worth. Maybe if people don't want to do anything, they just want a converter, then I can do that as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
So.
And then Patty's asking if you teach Photoshop actions for newbies.
Do I teach it as? I don't have like a YouTube channel that has a lot of like tutorials on it right now.
Yet.
It might be something I'm doing. But I'll consider it. I hadn't really been thinking.
We have to keep track, Christine, of how many people start YouTube channels after being on the show. We have got to start keeping a tally of this because I think it's been quite a few.
That's
Jim,
funny,
you could be like number 5 that started a YouTube channel after being on the show.
I've got a YouTube channel of design that just has some time lapse stuff of me doing some designs, just like sped up time lapse, which are I think kind of cool. It can plug that, but I don't have much up there because I just don't have a lot of time to do that. I always think I should just be recording this and then I'll just post it, but I just never do. So
What's your YouTube channel? Is it?
It's let me. I don't even know what it is. It's YouTube. It should be under DiGiovanni Design. So so I'm sure it's under there. Let me see if I. What I'll do is I'll get the exact URL and I'll share it with you guys. You guys can post it because I honestly upload stuff to there pretty rarely. I have a Vimeo channel for my animations and stuff like that I've done.
Cool.
That's sort of like client-based stuff, and I was doing some. I taught like After Effects expressions for a while. I was doing some stuff with that. So I have some stuff on my Vimeo channel, which is, it's like technical animation stuff, but I haven't done much with Photoshop. I probably should.
Okay.
It's a more widely used application, but yeah.
Teresa's saying she had Merchinator and Soft Rainbow Filter was my favorite.
Okay,
I didn't use that. I'm not familiar with that plugin, so I don't know what that did.
Yeah, it's very similar. Pretty much,
cool.
there were more options. But it did the same thing. You basically would put in like a shirt-sized PNG,
Mhm.
And then you could go through and just select all of the different things like, okay, do you want it to spit out a vintage one? Do
Oh,
you
cool.
want it to do hoodie, pop socket?
Mhm.
And there were lots of filters though, like some rainbow effects, some inversion effects. So
Mhm.
if it was like black text, it would convert it to the
Oh,
opposite.
interesting.
Yeah. So, and it would do the same thing. And then you'd get an email with all of your files once it was
Oh,
done.
that's pretty cool.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's pretty much sort of what you've got, but just not on like a web based platform and
Mhm.
just not as many options yet. But
Right.
I could see that being easy for you to add in the future, if
Yeah.
there's some other.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know whether I guess I'd have to look and see because I'm thinking about like adding Photoshop filters to, I think about the way that the stuff that I design and the way I design stuff.
Mhm.
It's not real Photoshoppy, I guess I'd say. It's not doesn't have like a lot of doesn't have a lot of filters and stuff. The designs
Mhm.
tend to be pretty clean and flat and stuff like that. I don't do a lot of stuff. But I'll investigate it. I hadn't really thought about that, but it's
Yeah.
just kind of just because most of the stuff I do since I'm starting from like a flat graphic starting point and then building stuff out from there and try to make if I can try to make things simpler rather than more complicated. That's kind of where I go from. But I'm just of the mind to just try to make design as simple as possible because that's what reads better. But
Mhm.
Yes.
yeah.
That's true.
Yes. Yeah.
See, look at that. 8:41, 40. Jim was like, I'll just take 10 minutes at the end to show the tool. I'm like, it's going to take more than 10 minutes.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
41 minutes later. Well, I know you had wanted to show other things. What were some of the things that you wanted to mention? Because I think you were saying there were some things that you noticed that people don't know how to do or they overlook.
Yeah, so something I'll just like, and what I do is I actually have like a Google Doc with just some resources in it and stuff. And I know that there's a lot
Nice.
of things out there for, where to get fonts and where to find colors and all that kind of stuff. This is just a couple of things that I'm just going to sort of like recommend.
Okay, great.
And then you can look for stuff like that. We could talk about as far as the tools that I use, and I know people use different tools. I use the Adobe suite just because I've been using it for 20 years and it's just, it comes, the fonts and all the tools that come with it are really good, especially for someone like me who works in Premiere and After Effects and Illustrator and Photoshop and all that other kind of stuff. I mean, the monthly subscription fee for that is well worth it for me. And one of the reasons why I like why I like using it so much for fonts, there's a lot of places to find quote unquote free fonts online that aren't really free. They're either what they call what do they call, like personal use only, which most people think, oh well, that that doesn't mean t-shirts. Well, yeah, it does mean t-shirts. You shouldn't, if it's really only if you're doing the idea for people posting free fonts online is so that you buy their actual font. And a lot of times it's like, if it's a free font, it might just be like a single weight of the font, or you don't get an italic or you don't get an extra bold or something like that. So I use, I buy the fonts that I use or I subscribe to the fonts because then I know that I have all the weights and all the options and stuff like that. So from a design sense, if you're thinking about design and you're thinking about, well, a lot of people's like, what font do I use? And, fonts fall into, I keep using the word fonts. It's technically typeface. The font is the delivery system with the software is the font. The typeface is the design. So Helvetica is a typeface and the font is how you use Helvetica as an example.
Nice.
So
did you know that, Christina?
No. Well, yes and no. Like, I guess I knew. When he said it, I was like, that's right. Yeah. But it's like, it's become such common language just to refer to them as
I know the words, but I think I use them interchangeably. I didn't know it was different.
I mean, technically the font is the delivery system. So it used to be a long, long time ago before there was desktop publishing. And before that, you used to get type in basically in books that you would rub off onto your mechanicals and stuff like that. And that was technically a font because it's a delivery for the typeface. But the actual design, the actual like Futura or Helvetica or Times Roman, those are typefaces, and then the way we use them is through fonts. If
Okay.
that makes sense. It's
Interesting.
it's kind of used. I mean, everyone just kind of uses it interchangeably. I do it myself. I say, "What font are you using?" I'm using, Futura. Okay,
Right.
it's really what typeface you're using, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, what a lot of people say is they say, "What font should I use for my design?" Or a lot of times you'll see things and they'll say, "What's wrong with this design? It isn't selling." You guys have seen those, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, and a lot of times what it is it's mainly too many fonts and too many colors. A lot of times people are just trying to do too much with it, and it's like a discipline to learn to not overly think or just add too many typefaces and stuff like that. So if you think about and in this document that I'll post, it has good places to learn a little bit about like typefaces and what they are and how to understand them. But typefaces fall into a couple different categories. There's serif fonts, and a serif is basically the little spur on the end of the font. So Times Roman, you know how they have the little spur on the end, or so Times, Garamond, Bookman, Gaudi, Palatino. Those are kind of classic serif fonts. And serif fonts have been around since the Gutenberg press. That was how they sort of a simplified version of like when they used to illuminate stuff with pen and ink and stuff like that back in the Middle Ages. So serifs were kind of like the extension of that's serif fonts. And then sans serif fonts is just that. It's without serif, sans serif. So that's what that means. And then in fonts that are sans serif fonts are things like, Helvetica, Futura, Proxima Nova, Gil Sans. Those are kind of classic sans serif fonts. The font that we're looking at on our screen, which is, I think, a Myriad, that's a sans serif font. Okay, just as an example. Verdana, which is the default font for a lot of Adobe stuff, is a sans serif font. Then there's slab serif fonts. Basically, it's a font. They're kind of conventional, but it has a serif, but it's blocky. It's a blocky font or a blocky serif. So if you think of like collegiate lettering or for something like that, those those are sans serifs because they have the blocky ends on them. And there's examples of that. And I have this in the document that I'll share. But like Rockwell, Clarendon, Geometric, Collegiate, there's a bunch of them, right? And those are sans serif fonts. And then there's script fonts, which everyone knows, things like Brush Script and Linoscript and Murray Hill. And those are the ones that are trying to, look like, handwriting or more like calligraphy, right? Yeah. And that's a really wide, like script fonts is a really wide range of things because it's basically almost everything falls into script fonts that doesn't fall into, the other three categories. So there's a lot of decorative fonts that kind of fall into the script category. So like Brush Script or Dom Casual, or if you look these things up, you'll start to recognize very commonly used script fonts. But and then like the final category, which is sort of a subcategory of that, would be what they call black letter fonts, which are like Old English fonts. Like the things that the things that people mistakenly do in all caps to look like a prison tattoo. That's like but that's not really the way you're supposed to use those. Is a black letter font should be only the initial should be capitalized and everything else should be lowercase. But if you think of like heavy metal album covers or stuff like that, that's classically black letter fonts. It's supposed to look old. It's supposed to look Gothic. Because it was done in the that was back in when they were illuminating Bibles back in Charlemagne time in the whatever it was, the 1600s or whatever that was. Excuse me if my history is wrong. But so those are those categories. But a lot of times what you'll see people are mixing up. They'll use more than one font in a category. So they'll put Bookman and Palatino in the same design, and you shouldn't do that. You should just pick one. If you're going to do a design and you're going to do multiple fonts, at least pick two categories and don't do more than two. So if you're going to combine things, use like if you're going to do, I'm just thinking on top of my head. So if you're going to do Times Roman, which is like everyone's font, and you would want to pick a sans serif font to go with it, like Futura or Helvetica or something like that, or a slab serif font. And there's some really good type. There's some really good type sites that are in this document that I'll share that kind of show you like what they call font pairings. So it's like, and it'll tell you like, okay, if you're going to pick this font, here's a good font for you to use with it. You know, if you're going to use Proxima Nova, then here's a good script font to use, or here's a good serif font to use with it. So it'll give you these combinations. So that's really useful because a lot of times I think people are just, they're overwhelmed by all the choices. I mean, you know, if you go to, you know, DaFont or, it's just good to find like one or two really good resources to learn about stuff and then go through all those resources before you jump to the next resource for finding stuff.
Yeah.
It's my opinion anyway. I think that's what works.
Absolutely. And thanks for putting together the Google Doc. Do you have that how do you want to show that?
You know what I'll do is I'll just make it shareable and I'll just send it to you and you can post it on the link. Does that make sense?
Okay.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's literally just my notes and with URLs and stuff like that. And I just kind of put it together based on, you know, typefaces and interesting foundries and font. Oh, there's another thing that's in there that I'll just talk about. Two other things very quickly is there's some explainers for what are called font identifiers, which are, there's one that I use all the time called What the Font, which is, but it's great because basically if you can't, like if you want to, I'm trying to do the thing that looks like the choices. And there's a couple different tools for that are in this list. And then also in the list are some like font management tools, like what do you use to actually open and close your fonts on your computer? I use something called Font Explorer Pro, but other people use Suitcase. There's a good little program out called Write Font 5 right now. I'm not endorsing them. I'm just telling you that they're out there. And then and there's also some interesting fonts and stuff that are on the on my list. Just interesting font foundries, people that make fonts that have some free fonts on their site, but just make some really cool fonts that are not overused and that are worth buying for whatever they are, $20 or whatever you're going to buy them for. But some of them are really, really cool. There's a site, and the links are in there, but there's a site called letterheadfonts.com, which has some beautiful fonts on there, really nice and really their stuff looks, it's a lot of signage, but that would look great on t-shirts. So you can look at that and just get some design inspiration. And Font Diner is another one. They do a lot of retro looking like typefaces that are very cool. So these are all just in my document that I'll share with you guys.
Nice.
Yeah.
And we got a couple questions. Betsy is saying, it says instant vintage work with Photoshop elements. Maybe you talked about it.
You know, Betsy, I'm not sure because no one has asked me about that, but send me a message in the group and I will check because I don't know whether Photoshop Elements has if it works with like extensions and stuff like that. I don't know enough about Photoshop Elements. So, but send me a message and I'll investigate it and find out and let you know.
Perfect.
Great.
And Patty says, has Jim thought about a weekly training? He's so knowledgeable. Oh. See, there we go. We need your YouTube channel up.
Yeah, well, I'll try. I'm pretty busy. I'll try. I'll try. This is kind of like my little like free time job. So I'll try to see if I'll have to figure out where I can put my energies. Helen, you can help me with that.
I was just gonna say we got you on the show twice, so we're lucky. Taking up your time. Thank you so much.
Just trying to figure out where to focus. But yeah, I mean, if people are interested, let me solve the problems with maybe porting this thing over to a web-based version for people who are interested in that, and then I'll do some instruction.
Great. Perfect. Here's another question real quick. Patty says, I've done some Photoshop but never added an extension. Do you include instructions?
Yeah, absolutely. So there are videos. So most people learn by just watching tutorials now as opposed to reading the documentation, but I did both. And I even say in the documentation, I will be very surprised. I wouldn't be surprised at all if I'm the only person that ever reads this, because no one reads documentations. So I wrote it just kind of for myself. But yeah, so there's documentation on how to do it, but there's also videos that come with it on how to install it and how to use it and what it does and all that. And those links, we can also I'll just share the links with Helen and Christina, and you guys can put them up. But there's a link for it, like how to install the software. There's links to how to demo the software. It's pretty self-explanatory, and it's very easy. I mean, it's basically like you open up Photoshop, you run a script, you close Photoshop, and it works. It's basically it. It's really simple.
Fantastic. And thank you, Janelle. Janelle saying fantastic webinar, such great information, especially about fonts. Thank you so much, Jim.
Oh, you're welcome. Very happy to help.
Yes.
Well, this was great.
There was one other question. This one's probably kind of for all of us here. It says, from Lynn, does vintage images seem to sell on books in KDP2? If so, can you estimate the percentage sell versus regular? For me, not so much. Like, I don't do as many. I may only have one cover that has a vintage on KDP, and it's just because that niche it works well in. I don't know. What about you guys?
So for me, I have it's similar to you. Like, some of the things I've done don't work at all for like vintage, for covers like that. But like there's one niche that is like that I have that's sort of like a vintage record niche, I guess you'd say.
Yeah.
So that lends itself to looking like an old book, I guess, or something it works well with that, and it prints really well on it. So because I have samples of it, it looks nice. And that does sell. But for the most part, I think probably for the KDP stuff, I think it's maybe 50-50 or maybe a little bit less vintage stuff than on the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why when Jim did the extension, he has that as an option. So you can turn that off and it'll still at least convert that file size for you, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Great. Well, do you want to do maybe a post in the Facebook group with your Google Doc and everything? And then it'll take me a minute to put it on the video because it has to process after this. So I probably won't, for anybody watching this, I probably won't get in the description of the video until tomorrow. But check the Facebook group. Hopefully we'll get a post up.
Right. I see Janelle has a question here. Yeah, it should work with CC. It'll work with any version of Photoshop CC.
Perfect. And this works with Mac or PC.
Mac, As a matter of fact, like this, I was showing you on my PC, but all my demos that are videos are all on the Mac because I work in both. So it works for both.
Okay. Great.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I have one other question.
Yeah.
I noticed the bobblehead collection in the background there.
Oh, yeah. These are so just quick, my hobby besides this is presidential history. I know, it's like if you probably can't see, but I've got all these presidential books and all stuff. There's a Teddy Roosevelt bust there, and so all the bobbleheads are presidents or should have been presidents. Hillary's there, but all the other ones are presidents, and these are mostly presidents that I have visited their site. So I've gone to like the presidential library or something like that. There's some that I haven't gotten yet because I just haven't had a chance. But when people find out you like something, they tend to give you those things. So they're like, hey, I sent you, it's like, oh, you like presidents? Here's a bobblehead. So yeah, so I really like them. So they got on display with all my other art and presidential history stuff. I got a lot of stuff up there. There's Franklin Delano Roosevelt above Teddy Roosevelt. And
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Patty says this was excellent. Thanks, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. Lots of good feedback.
Yeah. Thank you guys all for watching and commenting, and thank you, Jim, for coming on twice.
Yeah, I'm happy you had me on. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to tell people about it. I think it's pretty cool. So, and I think it's just going to save people time because
exactly
like a lot of this is for me is just it's sort of a numbers game. You have to be as efficient as possible to sort of repeating tasks over and over again. It's just like, I'm just going to invest some time and money into making it so that I don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So yeah, I think it makes it simpler. So yeah, but I'll send you, I'll send a link to you, or I'll put a post. If it's okay, I'll just put the post.
Yeah, just put the post up, and then I'll grab the link tomorrow.
And all that stuff. Cool.
For some reason, the YouTube video has to process.
Sure.
So I always go the next morning and download the audio and put it on the podcast and everything. So I'll add the link tomorrow.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. It was so nice seeing you both, and I really appreciate you having me on. Thanks.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone. And we'll see you guys on Thursday.
Yeah.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.